June 11, 1962. The Night 3. Men vanished into legend. The guard's flashlight beam cut through the darkness of cell block B, sweeping across the rows of steel bars that had held America's most dangerous criminals for nearly 3 decades. Officer William Long had walked this route 1,000 times, but something felt different tonight. The usual sounds, snoring, whispered conversations, the creak of metal bunks, seemed muted, as if the prison itself was holding its breath. When his light fell on cell 138, he froze. A head lay motionless on the pillow. But something was wrong. The hair looked too perfect, too still. Long moved closer, his hand instinctively moving to his radio. When he reached through the bars and touched the head, it rolled sideways with a hollow thunk. It was made of paper mache, human hair carefully glued to the surface, the flesh-toned paint still slightly wet. The cell was empty. Frank Morris was gone. Within minutes, the guards discovered 2 more dummy heads in cells 136 and 140. John Anglin and his brother Clarence had vanished too. The alarm shrieked through the island fortress, shattering the San Francisco Bay's midnight silence. Warden Olin Blackwell rushed to the scene, his face ashen. In 29 years, Alcatraz had never had a successful escape. That record, he realized with growing horror, might have just been broken. But this story doesn't begin on that June night. It begins 14 months earlier, when Frank Lee Morris arrived at Alcatraz on January 20th, 1960. Morris wasn't like other inmates. With an IQ of 133, he possessed a near-genius intellect that prison officials noted with both admiration and concern. By age 13, he'd already been convicted of his first crime. By 30, he'd escaped from prisons in Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida. The authorities finally decided there was only one place that could hold him: the Rock. What they didn't realize was that sending Frank Morris to Alcatraz was like giving a chess grandmaster an unfinished puzzle and all the time in the world to solve it. Morris spent his first months studying the prison with the methodical patience of a scientist. He watched the guards' patrol patterns, timed their rounds down to the second, and noted every weakness in the daily routine. He observed that the old Civil War-era fortress was crumbling, its concrete walls deteriorating from decades of salt air corrosion, and then he discovered something extraordinary. Behind his cell's sink, the concrete was soft, almost crumbly. When he pressed a spoon handle against it, a small chunk broke away. Morris's pulse quickened. The ventilation grates in their cells weren't decorative. They were actual shafts that led to a utility corridor running behind the cell block. For the first time in his criminal career, Frank Morris saw a way out of Alcatraz. Morris knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed men he could trust, men with nothing to lose and everything to gain. He found them in cells 136 and 140. John and Clarence Anglin were bank robbers from Georgia, farm boys who'd turned to crime during the Depression. They'd been inseparable since childhood, and their loyalty to each other was absolute. More importantly, they were in cells adjacent to Morris, cells that would allow them to access the same utility corridor. There was a fourth man too, Alan West, in cell 138, directly next to Morris. West had worked in maintenance, which meant he knew the prison's infrastructure better than anyone. He would be their technical advisor. In December 1961, Morris made his proposal during the 15 minutes of recreation time they shared in the yard. The brothers agreed immediately. West hesitated. He'd only have a year left on his sentence. But Morris was persuasive. "We're getting out," he told West quietly, "with or without you. But with you, our chances double." West was in. What followed was one of the most elaborate escape plans in American criminal history, but it required something the men had precious little of: tools. Alcatraz had workshops where inmates performed labor, everything from laundry to furniture repair. Over the following months, the 4 men began losing items with remarkable frequency. A spoon vanished from the dining hall, a drill bit disappeared from the carpentry shop. Someone's fan went missing during a cell shakedown. Morris and his crew were building an arsenal. But here's where the story takes its first truly chilling turn. They weren't working alone. Other inmates knew something was happening. Alcatraz operated on an intricate code of silence. Prisoners protected each other from the guards, even if they hated each other. Men who noticed the quiet scraping sounds coming from cells 136, 138, 140, and 150 every night after lights out said nothing. Some even helped. A prisoner working in the garment shop smuggled out rubber from life preservers. Another inmate accidentally left paint supplies in an unguarded corridor. The entire cell block became complicit in the escape, a silent conspiracy that no investigator would ever fully untangle. Morris modified a vacuum cleaner motor into a makeshift drill. They used spoons sharpened on the concrete floor as chisels. Every night, while one man dug, another played his accordion to mask the sound. The guards assumed the music was just another form of prison entertainment. By May 1962, they'd widened the ventilation grills enough for a man to squeeze through. But getting out of their cells was only the beginning. The men needed time, hours between the last bed check at 9 p.m. and the first morning count at 7 a.m. The guards had to believe they were still in their cells, asleep in their bunks. This is where the escape plan ventures into almost theatrical territory. Using a secret workshop they'd set up in the utility corridor behind their cells, the men created lifelike dummy heads. They collected hair from the barbershop floor, blonde for the Anglins, brown for Morris and West. They mixed soap powder with toilet paper to create paper mache, then painted the forms with flesh-toned paint stolen from the art supplies. They even added details like wrinkles and 5 o'clock shadow. But there was something else they were building in that hidden corridor, something far more ambitious, a raft. Using over 50 raincoats collected through bribes and theft, they stitched together a 6 by 14-foot raft with watertight seams. They constructed life vests using the same raincoat material. Morris, with his engineer's mind, designed a makeshift bellows from an accordion to inflate the raft. Then came an unexpected problem that would change everything. In March 1962, 2 months before the escape, something unusual happened. A new guard was hired at Alcatraz, a temporary transfer from the UK prison system as part of an exchange program. His name was documented in the prison records, but curiously, those specific pages later went missing from the archives. What we do know comes from fragments of letters and a single declassified FBI report from 1978. This guard, according to fellow officers, took an unusual interest in Morris and the Anglin brothers. He spent extra time in their cell block, often arriving during the evening shift when supervision was lighter. Some guards later reported that he seemed too friendly with certain inmates, particularly Morris. Was he bribed, blackmailed, or was there something more calculated at play? The FBI investigation later revealed something disturbing. The guard had family connections to organized crime in London's East End, more specifically to a smuggling operation that moved goods and people across the Atlantic. Could the escape have had international support? This question would haunt investigators for decades, especially after what happened next. By early June, everything was in place. The escape route was mapped. They would climb through the ventilation shafts to the utility corridor, ascend to the roof through an unused air vent, shimmy down 50 feet of piping to the ground, and make their way to the northern shore of Alcatraz Island. From there, they would inflate their raft and paddle to Angel Island, about 2 miles away, then to the mainland. The plan was to launch on June 11, 1962. The tides would be most favorable that night, and weather forecasts predicted fog, crucial for avoiding the searchlights. But 72 hours before the escape, Alan West made a critical error. During a routine cell inspection, a guard noticed fresh concrete around West's ventilation grill. West had tried to hide his digging by creating a fake wall from cardboard and paint, but it had cracked. The guard stared at it for a long moment. West's heart hammered in his chest. Then the guard shrugged and walked away. It was the kind of moment that, in hindsight, seemed almost impossible. Had the guard really missed it? Or had he been paid to look the other way? West immediately sent word to Morris through the prison grapevine. They had to move up the timeline. They would go tomorrow night, June 11th. At 9:30 p.m. on June 11th, 1962, the cell block lights went out. The 4 men waited exactly 30 minutes, the amount of time it took for the guards to complete their first rounds and settle into the routine of the night shift. At 10 p.m., Frank Morris pushed his dummy head onto his pillow, arranged his blankets to look like a sleeping body, and squeezed through the ventilation grill he'd been widening for over a year. The Anglin brothers did the same. Alan West tried to follow. His grill wouldn't open. In his panic to hide his digging from the guard inspection 3 days earlier, West had used real concrete instead of his usual fake mixture. Now it had hardened, and the grill was stuck. He clawed at it desperately, trying to pry it loose, but it wouldn't budge. On the other side of the wall, Morris faced an agonizing decision. Every minute they waited increased their chances of discovery. They'd planned this for 18 months. The tides were perfect. The fog was rolling in. He made the call. They had to leave West behind. The three men climbed through the utility corridor in complete darkness, their hands finding the familiar holds they'd memorized during dozens of practice runs. They reached the roof access vent, removed the grill, and emerged onto the cell house roof under a blanket of fog so thick they could barely see the guard tower 50 yards away. The escape was going exactly as planned. But then something unexpected happened, something that wouldn't be discovered until years later. In 2015, a former Alcatraz inmate named Thomas Kent came forward with a deathbed confession to a television documentary crew. Kent had been serving time for armed robbery in 1962, his cell located on the opposite side of the cell block from Morris and the Anglins. On the night of June 11th, Kent claimed he couldn't sleep. At approximately 10:45 p.m., he heard sounds on the roof, scraping, the soft thud of feet on tiles. Then he heard something else. Voices. Not the voices of the escapees. Other voices. There was someone else up there, Kent insisted, his voice barely above a whisper even 50 years later. Someone was helping them. I heard a man with a British accent say, "The boat's waiting at the North Point. You've got 20 minutes before the patrol swings back." Kent never reported what he heard. The inmate code of silence was absolute. But his testimony, if true, suggested something that would rewrite the entire story. Morris and the Anglins didn't escape alone. Someone was waiting for them. The three men shimmied down the pipes to ground level and made their way to the northern shore. They inflated their raft using the accordion bellows, a process that took nearly 15 minutes. By 11:30 p.m., they pushed off into the San Francisco Bay. The water temperature was 54 degrees Fahrenheit. The current ran at 6 knots. Hypothermia would set in within 30 minutes without protection. According to the FBI's later analysis, the raft and life vests the men had constructed would barely be sufficient, if they functioned at all. This is where the official story claims they died, swept out to sea through the Golden Gate, their bodies claimed by the Pacific Ocean. But evidence discovered in the following hours would suggest otherwise. When dawn broke on June 12th, a massive manhunt was already underway. The Coast Guard deployed boats and helicopters. The FBI activated agents across California. Police set up roadblocks on every major highway. What they found was perplexing. On Angel Island, 2 miles north of Alcatraz, searchers discovered footprints in the mud matching the shoe sizes of the Anglin brothers. Nearby, they found a paddle floating in the water, along with a wallet wrapped in plastic containing photographs of the Anglin family, but no money or identification. The paddle was made of wood and showed signs of recent use. But here's what made investigators uneasy. It was found on the opposite side of Angel Island from where someone paddling from Alcatraz would logically arrive. It was as if the paddle had been planted. 3 days later, a Norwegian freighter crew spotted a body floating in the bay wearing a blue prison uniform. Before they could retrieve it, a strong current carried it away. Despite extensive searches, the body was never found. No remains of Morris or the Anglins were ever recovered. Then came the discovery that changed everything. On June 14, 1962, 3 days after the escape, a 1955 blue Chevrolet was found abandoned in a remote area north of San Francisco, near Point Reyes. The car had been reported stolen the morning after the escape from a location just 5 miles from the mainland shore closest to Angel Island. Inside the car, investigators found 3 sets of wet footprints in the back seat, shredded pieces of blue prison uniform fabric, a road map with a route highlighted leading to Seattle. Most disturbing, a pack of British cigarettes, a brand not sold in the United States. The FBI kept this discovery classified for 16 years. Why? Because it confirmed what they feared most. Morris and the Anglins had reached the mainland. They had survived. As the investigation expanded, FBI agents discovered something that elevated this from a prison escape to an international incident. In July 1962, customs officials in Liverpool, England, flagged an unusual transaction. A merchant ship called the Silver Moon had departed from San Francisco Bay on June 13th, 2 days after the escape, bound for Southampton. The ship's manifest listed 3 crew members who had joined the vessel in San Francisco, all using falsified Norwegian identification. British intelligence, cooperating with the FBI, obtained photographs of the 3 men taken by port security. The images were grainy, shot from a distance, but facial recognition experts at the FBI's laboratory made a startling conclusion. There was an 85% probability match for 2 of the men being John and Clarence Anglin. The third man's face was obscured, but his height and build matched Frank Morris. The ship's captain was questioned. He claimed the 3 men had been hired through a labor contractor in San Francisco and that all their paperwork had been in order. When investigators tried to trace the contractor, they discovered the business address was a vacant lot and the phone number disconnected. The Silver Moon had disappeared into maritime bureaucracy, and so had any chance of finding the truth. But the story doesn't end there. Between 1962 and 1965, the Anglin family in Florida received 4 anonymous postcards, all postmarked from different locations: Seattle, Canada, Brazil, and curiously, Birmingham, England. The postcards contained no messages, only a hand-drawn symbol, 3 simple stick figures holding hands. It was the same symbol John Anglin had doodled obsessively during his time in Alcatraz. Guards had found it carved into his cell wall after the escape. Handwriting experts examined the postcards. While they couldn't definitively attribute the handwriting to John Anglin, they noted that whoever drew the symbols was right-handed and applied pressure consistent with someone trained in technical drawing, a skill John had learned during his prison work assignments. The FBI investigated each postmarked location but found no leads. The postcards stopped arriving in 1965, and the family never heard from John or Clarence again, or did they? In January 2018, the FBI received a letter that sent shockwaves through their cold case division. The letter, postmarked from Southern California, began with a stunning confession. "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. I am 83 years old and suffering from cancer. I want to make a deal with the FBI. If they promise to send me to prison for no more than 1 year and give me medical treatment, I will tell them exactly where to find me. This is no joke." The letter contained details about the escape that had never been made public. The type of concrete used around the ventilation grills, the specific measurements of the raft, even the color of paint used on the dummy heads. Most tantalizingly, it contained information about where they went. We all made it to shore. Frank died in 2008. Clarence died in 2011. They died free men. I am the last one alive. I want to come home. The FBI's analysis of the letter was inconclusive. The handwriting couldn't be definitively matched to John Anglin's prison documents from 60 years earlier. The writer had arthritis or nerve damage affecting their penmanship. Age progression photos of John Anglin showed he would be approximately 86 years old in 2018, close to the claimed age. The FBI sent agents to investigate the return address. It didn't exist. To this day, the FBI won't confirm or deny whether they believe the letter is genuine, but they've never closed the case. In 2015, the Anglin family released a photograph they claimed had been sent to them in 1975. The photo showed 2 men standing on a farm, both appearing to be in their mid-40s. The family insisted the men were John and Clarence. Forensic analysts used facial recognition technology to compare the photograph to prison photos of the Anglin brothers. The results were startling. The analysis showed a strong possibility that the men in the photograph were indeed John and Clarence Anglin, aged approximately 13 years from their 1962 prison photos. But where was the farm? The family claimed not to know. The photograph's background showed mountains and vegetation consistent with regions in Brazil, Argentina, or even rural Spain. Art West, Alan West's nephew, came forward with another piece of the puzzle. Before his death in 1978, Alan West had allegedly told family members that Morris and the Anglins had planned to make their way to South America, where a contact, possibly connected to organized crime, would help them establish new identities. Was this contact the British guard who'd worked at Alcatraz? The FBI has never revealed his identity or fate. The official FBI position remains that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers likely drowned in San Francisco Bay. The U.S. Marshals Service, however, still carries active warrants for all three men and continues to investigate leads. But the evidence suggests a far more complex story. The physical evidence, the car, the footprints, the paddle's location, indicates they reached the mainland. The cigarettes and the Silver Moon connections suggest international assistance. The postcards and the 2018 letter suggest at least one of them survived for decades. Here's what we can piece together from declassified documents, witness testimony, and forensic evidence. Morris, John, and Clarence likely made it to Angel Island using their makeshift raft. Someone, possibly the mysterious British guard, possibly a criminal contact, was waiting with a boat to transport them to a predetermined mainland location. They stole the Chevrolet and drove north, possibly to Seattle, where they boarded the Silver Moon using fake documents provided by an international smuggling network. From there, the trail goes cold. 60 years later, these questions still haunt investigators. Did Alan West intentionally sabotage his own escape? Some investigators believe West got cold feet at the last moment and deliberately secured his grill too tightly, giving himself an alibi. After the escape, he cooperated extensively with the FBI, providing details about the plan, details that may have been calculated to send investigators in the wrong direction. Who was the British guard? Despite extensive investigation, the FBI has never publicly identified this person or explained why his records disappeared from Alcatraz archives. Was he a plant from the beginning? Was he working for organized crime? What happened to Frank Morris? If the 2018 letter is genuine, Morris lived until 2008, 46 years as a free man. Where did he live? What did he do? Did he ever regret the escape that made him a legend? Why did the postcards stop in 1965? Did the Anglin brothers die, go deeper underground, or simply decide the risk of any contact, however minimal, was too great? In 2020, a team of Dutch scientists used state-of-the-art computer modeling to simulate the escape. Their conclusion shocked the law enforcement community. Under the specific tidal and weather conditions of June 11, 1962, if the men had launched from the exact location where evidence suggested they did, and if they paddled with moderate strength, they had a 95% probability of successfully reaching Angel Island or the Marin County shoreline. The analysis directly contradicted 60 years of FBI assertions that survival was nearly impossible. The U.S. Marshals immediately commissioned their own study. The results were classified. Today, Alcatraz Island receives over 1.5 million visitors annually. Most come to see the cells where Morris and the Anglins spent 18 months planning the impossible. The dummy heads are on display in the museum, their painted faces frozen in peaceful sleep, eternally fooling the guards. Cell 138, Frank Morris's cell, remains exactly as it was left that night. Visitors can peer through the bars at the ventilation grill, barely 20 inches wide, and wonder how a grown man squeezed through. They can see the fake wall he constructed, the primitive tools he fashioned from spoons and vacuum cleaner parts. Tour guides tell the story with theatrical flair, always ending with the same conclusion. They probably drowned in the bay. No one has ever proven they survived. But in the gift shop, there's a display that tells a different story. It's a map showing alleged sightings of the escapees. Seattle, 1965 Alberta, Canada, 1970 Rio de Janeiro, 1975 Miami, 1989 Montana, 2002. Most are unsubstantiated. Some have been debunked, but others remain stubbornly unresolved, kept alive by witnesses who swear they saw men matching the descriptions, living quiet lives under assumed names. In March 2023, a retired FBI agent named Robert Hayes went public with information that had been buried for decades. Hayes had worked on the Alcatraz cold case in the 1990s and had access to classified files. According to Hayes, the FBI had conclusively identified the British guard who worked at Alcatraz in 1962. The man had returned to England shortly after the escape and died in 1987. But before his death, he'd been investigated by MI6 for suspected involvement in international smuggling operations. Hayes claimed the FBI found evidence that the guard had arranged for the Silver Moon pickup and had been paid $50,000, approximately $500,000 in today's money, by an unknown party. Who paid him? The FBI files don't say, but Hayes revealed one final detail that changes everything. In the guard's possessions after his death, British authorities found a photograph. 3 men standing on a beach, palm trees in the background, smiling at the camera. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, Recife, 1968. Recife is a city in northeastern Brazil. The British government has never released the photograph, claiming it's too deteriorated to definitively identify the subjects, but facial recognition experts who saw the image before it was classified said the men bore a remarkable resemblance to Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin. On June 11, 2025, the Alcatraz Escape will mark its 63rd anniversary. The FBI case file remains open. The U.S. Marshals continue to investigate tips, and somewhere, in a vault in Washington, D.C., the 2018 letter from the man claiming to be John Anglin sits in an evidence box, along with the Brazilian photograph and hundreds of other pieces of evidence that form an incomplete puzzle. Did Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers die in San Francisco Bay on that foggy June night in 1962, victims of cold water and impossible odds? Or did they pull off what every expert said was impossible, escaping from Alcatraz, evading a massive manhunt, and disappearing into new lives, leaving behind only tantalizing clues and unanswered questions? The FBI officially lists them as missing and presumed dead. But every year, on June 11th, at exactly 10 p.m., a single rose is placed on the shore of Angel Island, on the exact spot where investigators found footprints in 1962. No one knows who leaves it. No cameras have ever captured the person's face, and every year, the rose is gone by morning. 3 men walked into the darkness 63 years ago. The darkness never gave them back. The Alcatraz Escape case remains open. If you have information, contact the U.S. Marshal Service at 1-800-336-0102.